Thank you to the UN Global Compact for inviting Women Moving Millions to participate in this forum and for your leadership in convening the private sector to accelerate gender equality. It is an honor to be on this virtual stage today representing Women Moving Millions, a global philanthropic community of women who since our founding have gathered the focus and commitment of over 350 women in 16 countries, catalyzing nearly $1 billion to achieve gender equality, an organization which I am privileged to lead. As the global community gathers for the Commission on the Status of Women, we are doing so not just in the shadow of war, but also in the midst of the biggest crisis for women in our collective memory. As Vice President Kamala Harris wisely stated, the status of women is the status of democracy. As such, we must recognize that wherever women's rights are under threat and retreat, so too is democracy. A little more than a decade ago, only 6% of the world's population lived in autocracies. Today, 34% do. This worrying rise directly correlates with the assault on women's rights and opportunity. With women's political and economic empowerment stalled or in decline, a downward trend that the pandemic has accelerated. At a time when the challenges before the global community have never felt so great and urgent, from the accelerating climate crisis, breakdown of trust and confidence in democratic institutions and its leaders, and the impact of the pandemic on the overall well-being of society, and now the crisis in Ukraine, it is understandable to feel pessimistic about the possibility that we can build a more just and equal world. But this is precisely the moment when we must be vigilant, determined, and bold in action. The global community must acknowledge and embrace that women power democracy. At this grave moment of democratic retreat, now is the time to treat women's rights not as a parallel or complementary strategy, but instead place it at the center of national and global approaches to strengthen democracy. Indeed, women's rights and participation are integral to the very integrity of democracy. As USAID Administrator Samantha Power states, if you want peace in this world, trust women to deliver it. That is why at Women Moving Millions, we are driving resources to feminist movement building efforts to do our part to ensure philanthropy plays a critical role in strengthening and sustaining democracy in the process. Now is the time for the philanthropic sector to come together and work in partnership with the private sector and governments to meet this moment head on. By funding women's civic and political efforts, we are buttressing democracy and fulfilling its promise to extend prosperity and human rights for all. Together, we can ensure that women's needs are at the center of efforts to strengthen democracy. In doing so, philanthropy can act as an accelerant by funding feminist movements at the scale needed to meet today's greatest challenges. The next chapter written on democracy's triumph over evil and darkness will be written by women. We cannot confront paternalistic, regressive assaults on democracy without investing in the leadership, power, and influence of women and girls. Philanthropy must step up and finance the priorities on which the future of democracy depends. The future of democracy is gender equality. Thank you.